Now, very similar to while loop, but there is another way to implement a loop using PHP. So that's a for loop. So using for, let's see how we can implement a loop. So the syntax of a for loop is slightly different from while. Again, after for, we have a parenthesis, and the parenthesis is used to check the condition, particularly stopping conditions. But if you look at the elements inside this parenthesis, we have actually three elements separated by this semicolon. So what those three pieces of information, what are the roles? The first one, if you look at carefully, it looks like the first line of your while loop. If you forgot, let me go back here while. And in this while statement, before we start this loop, we initialize the value of this counter variable I. But in the for statements, there is no initialization. However, instead, we have this first element inside this parenthesis, and we initialize the value I here. So inside the parenthesis of your for statements, you are initializing value. And look at the second elements. It is very similar to the condition of while statements, right? So therefore, this middle one is yes, stopping condition. As far as the return value of this second condition is true, then it will run this loop. And the last one, it is also obvious. If you compare this with while loop, what we have done inside this while block, we explicitly increased the value of I using these increment operators. For the for statements, more concisely, we add this logic, what you are going to do for the end of each loop inside this for statements as the third element. So in sum, in for statements, inside the parentheses, we provide three pieces of information. The first one, initial value. Second one, stopping condition. The third one, what you do in every loop, end of every loop. Okay, so now inside here, curly brace, you can see only echo statements. So in these echo statements, we just print out hello world with this BR line break HTML tag. So what will happen? Actually, you will just simply print out hello world 5 times if you run this loop. So let's test this in actual PHP code. Okay, go back to your M4T3 directory. Now let's create a new file. So create a new file, and this time name it as a for.php. So let's select this and view and edit. And again, let me just copy this skeleton code as the starting point. And inside here, let me add one line comment. So for loop, we want to add here. So the syntax is for, and there is one parenthesis, and the curly brace. Well, so this block will be repeated. Okay, so now inside this parenthesis, there are three pieces of elements you have to provide, separated by semicolon. So let's add the semicolon first. What was the first value? Initialization. So we will set up a variable, count variable, so $i, and let's set up the initial value as 1. Now, second one, we want to implement a stopping condition. So if you decide to repeat this 5 times, you can use just the same variable I, and you can use less than or equal to 5. So as the value of I increases from 1 to 5, it will be repeated 5 times. The last one is what we will do in each loop. So we want to increase the value of I by 1. So let's use the same variable I, then use 2 plus sign as an increment operator. Now, what's left? What you are going to do, what you want to repeat. So let's say echo there is a text we want to repeat. So what you want to repeat, let's just type hello world, and then don't forget this would be combined with the HTML page. So this echo function will just simply print out this text. So we want to add BR tag inside this text, so you can explicitly add line break for each statement. Does it make sense? Okay, so let's test this. So save it and go back to FileZilla, upload it, and in your browser, instead of while.php, we can test it for for.php. So you will see this result, hello world, 5 times. And again, if you check the page source, you can see that hello world with line break, it has been printed. So it has been echoed 5 times, and it's just combined with your HTML page. So again, if you check your source code one more time, this source code will generate this HTML page, and this page was sent to your browser, and your browser showed this in this web page. Before we move on, I would like to ask you kind of a challenging question. So if you need to make a program that can calculate the sum of the number from 1 to 5, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, how can you implement it? I mean, even without program, you can easily calculate it, and we know that the answer is 15. But if you need to implement it as a program, can we use a loop? That's kind of a question. So when you have this kind of challenging question, the first step would be, rather than just directly type your program and debug, you may want to try to write down some pseudocode. Pseudocode is not formal syntax, but informally you can just make some informal statements that describe your logic. So for example, pseudocode may look like this. So you can just say let sum equals to 0. So I want to initialize kind of value for this sum. And it is just currently 0, and we want to keep update this value of a sum, and we will get the final answer 15 at the end. Then how can we do that? So first you may add the first number 1, right? So if you add 1 to sum, currently it's 0, so if you add 1, what would be the value of sum? The sum will be 1 now, right? After then, with this 1 as a current sum, you will add the second number 2. So then, this sum will be updated with your current value of sum 1, and by adding this new number 2, it will be updated to 3, right? Now, sum is 3, and what's the next step? You will add the third number. What's the third one? Number 3. So now the sum value will be updated based on your current sum value. What's the current sum? Here you have a sum equals 3. So this value will become here, and we want to add this new value 3. So the sum would be 6 now. Now next, adding 4, how to add it? Using current sum. Again, from here we know that currently we have 6. This is the result of 1 plus 2 plus 3. And using 6, we want to add a new number 4. So your sum would be 10. Lastly, with 10, you will add 5 as the last number, and you can get the value sum equals to 15. This is a kind of logic how to get the answer. If you implement this as a program, now what you can find is for each adding here in each line, there is a kind of a pattern that's repeating. What's the pattern? You can see that although numbers are changing over time, we are updating the value of sum. So we can say it's a new value of sum. It's updated with old sum. Old sum means one step before the previous step's sum value. And we are adding new number. New number, if you look at this line, first we have 1, then 2, and 3, 4, 5. So this is kind of a counter variable. So each step we are adding new number from 1 to 5. So this is a kind of pattern. So in other words, if you use a loop, you may implement this as a block, and you may want to repeat this 5 times. Using this pseudocode as a hint, can you develop your PHP program that can give you the answer 15 on your web page? I suggest you to stop the video and develop your program by yourself as a practice, and then compare your answer with my suggestion. Okay, I believe at least you have tried by yourself, and let's do it together. So in the same directory, right click and create a new file and name it as sum.php, and the sum.php, let's edit. And again, let me just start with this skeleton code, HTML and PHP block. And inside this PHP block, so let's start. So what we wanna do, we wanna start with the sum. So let's declare sum will keep the most current summation of the numbers. Okay, so let's use a sum, and I will initialize this with 0, like similar to our pseudocode. And then we want to keep updating in a loop. So it does not matter whether you use while loop or for loop. So let me start with for loop. So let's use a for loop, and inside here we have some conditions, and we want to repeat this curly brace block will be repeated. Okay, so if there are 5 numbers, we want to repeat this loop 5 times. So anyway, we need some counter numbers. So let's declare counter number as I, as we have done before, and we will initialize this as 1, and then with the semicolon, we will repeat this 5 times. So if it's I less than equal to 5, and every loop I want to increase this with 1. So $i variable, and let's increase this by 1. Okay, so in this block, what we want to do, so we want to update the value of sum. So let's start with the sum. And how do you update it? You look at the previous value, the most current value of sum, and this value you want to add a new number. What is a new number? Starting from 1, you want to sequentially add until 5. So let's add I as the new number. That's it? Yes, actually that's everything. So if you simulate this, you will easily figure out this logic is correct. So starting with 0, suppose I is 1. Now sum is still 0. So 0 plus 1 will be saved as a sum. Still I is 1. So the I value will be increased to 2. And it is less than 5, so it's going to be repeated. So what was the sum? Sum was 1 in the previous step. So 1 will be used here, and now the new value is 2. So 1 plus 2, 3 will be saved in sum. And then in the next logic, 3 plus the new value, 4. So 7 will be the new value of sum. And so on, it's going to be repeating. And finally, when I equals to 5, the sum will be 10. So 10 plus 5 will be saved in sum. So sum would be 15. And with I equals to 6, it will exit. So after this loop, the value of sum would be 15. So how to check whether the value would be 15 after this loop? End of this loop, not inside this loop. End of this loop, you can just simply check echo, and then you can type sum here, and then the final result will be printed in your web page. Okay, so save it, update it, and in your browser, And in your browser, instead of for PHP, let's type sum.php, and then you will get 15. So if you implement this as a logic, you can easily modify it. For example, if you wanna get the result, the sum from 1 to 10, what you need to change? You can just simply change this ending condition to 10. Then the answer would be the sum of 1 and 2 and until 10. So let's save it, and let's check the result in this case. I know that the answer is 55. So let's refresh it, and you will get the answer 55. And also, if you want to get the sum of just even number, what you need to do? Then you may start with I equals to 2. And you will stop when I equals to 10. But now, if it's just even number, every loop, you want to increase the value of I, not by 1. Then the last condition would be also different, just in not increment, but new value would be the I plus 2. So by adding this, we start from 2, but next 4 and 6 and 8 and 10, those numbers will be added using this loop. So the even number from 2 to 10 will be added, and you can get the answer here. So let's test it. So save it, and then let's upload it. And if you go back to your website and refresh it, you will get the answer 30. So 30 is the sum of 2, 4, and 6, 8, and 10.